Hello there and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about dragon riding, and more specifically we're going to talk about dragon riding in Azeroth and beyond, as we've got a little bit more information about dragon riding outside of the Dragon Isles and some speculation based on data mining. So strap in, this is going to be a good one, and yeah, we're going to go through a lot of things in this one. But before we jump into all of that, guys, I just want to shout out my Twitch, twitch.tv/MrGM. If you want to see me stream World of Warcraft, Dragonflight PTR and more, I'm over on twitch.tv/MrGM every single day. Right, so yes, dragon riding outside of the Dragon Isles. Now, this is something that obviously people have wanted pretty much from the launch of Dragonflight. As soon as we started dragon riding, people were like, right, I want to do this in the Eastern Kingdoms. I want to do it in Kalimdor. I want to do it in Northrend. And based off of player feedback, it looks like Blizzard are looking into and going to add dragon riding in these zones. Now, in patch 10.1.5, we have a brand new event called the Kalimdor Cup. If you want to know more about the specifics of the Kalimdor Cup, I do have a full video going over it. But essentially what this is dragon riding races in Kalimdor. So you can't dragon ride outside of the races, but you will be able to dragon ride in Kalimdor during these races, and you get to do the races and whatnot around Kalimdor. Also, in a recent build, there was data mine icons for a cup in every location pretty much. So even like Shadowlands, Outland, Northrend, every single zone seemed to get a calendar entry for a potential cup, for potential races in those zones. So it looks like the races seem to be the first thing they're adding to these zones to give you dragon riding, but that does mean you are restricted to exclusively doing dragon riding inside the races. You can't just fly around aimlessly. I mean, you can for a couple seconds, then you get dismounted or taken back to the start. So that is 10.1.5. We know for sure we're getting the Kalimdor Cup. That is actually slated for August as well, so it's only a limited time event, but yeah, that's coming in 10.1.5. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about in this video is dragon riding all the time, not in races, just constantly everywhere, as much as you can. Now, there's been a lot of changes to the game files to certain mounts and things like that to bring out the speculation on dragon riding outside of the Dragon Isles. Now, Blizzard actually responded to this data mining with a rare forum post. So this says, "Good day, dragon riders. As data miners have guessed, we are indeed working on dragon riding outside of the Dragon Isles and broadening the set of mounts that can dragon ride. Our initial work on this could be seen in the Fractures of Time game files, but this feature will not be completed or featured in the live game until later in Dragonflight. As we continue to develop the game in this way, we expect there will be many examples in the future of content that is work in progress becoming visible to data miners in a test environment. We intend to announce the contents of any given patch in our official posts about that patch." So yeah, this is Blizzard literally responding to all of the big changes to all the mounts in the game files. So what am I talking about when I say about mount changes in the game files? Basically what happened is when the 10.1.5 PTR first came up, data miners noticed a couple new mount types in the mount database. You have 424, 428, and 429. Now when you dive into these specific mount types, they have different capabilities, so the kind of regular capabilities that you have with like a normal mount, but they did have a new capability, and this is a spell called Dynamic Flight. So Dynamic Flight is really interesting, so looking into it a little bit more, there's also another spell related to Dynamic Flight called Flight Style Dynamic. So this says Dynamic Flight is currently enabled. In areas where you can fly, Dynamic Flight abilities will be active. Dynamic Flight looks like it's going to be kind of the in-game name for dragon riding, which makes sense because, you know, it is dynamic. You kind of press abilities to fly and things like that. Whereas you kind of have your regular kind of flying. It looks like regular flying is now just going to be called static flying, whereas dynamic flying seems to be the new name for dragon riding for mounts that can do kind of the dragon riding abilities. Now there's also another spell called Change Flight Style. Now this spell has a 2-second cast, and what it does is it switches to dynamic flight. From looking at these two spells, it looks like we will actually be able to choose whether or not we want to fly regularly or we want to fly dynamic. And potentially this could also mean that we could fly regularly in the Dragon Isles as well. I can imagine that's going to be another part of this, of course. So from the looks of things, like when you're flying around, you could just press this change flight style ability, and that will change it to dynamic flight, and you have an aura or whatever, and then if you jump on one of the mounts with one of the new mount types, you'll be able to fly like dragon riding with your dragon riding abilities. And from the looks of things, anywhere that you can currently fly is going to be dynamic flight. So as mentioned, those zones like Shadowlands, Outlands, the Broken Isles, Coltiris, etc. Basically anywhere where you can fly, you'll be able to dragon ride as well. Obviously that doesn't mean that you can dragon ride now in Silvermoon or anything like that. They're not adding any new locations for flying, just simply changing it so any location you can currently fly will also be a dynamic flight location, which is really cool. So dynamic flight seems to be the kind of thing that is coming in, potentially in 10.1.7 or 10.2. I would imagine it's probably going to be a pretty big feature, so maybe 10.2 will bring this feature in fully, but we've definitely got some kind of like back-end stuff added in 10.1.5 as mentioned in the blue post. So this is where the really fun part comes in. As mentioned, there are 3 new mount types, and these mount types were added to existing mounts, and 100 of them, yeah, 100 mounts were added to these three mount types. Now, from my kind of research, it looks like the three mount types are correlated to specific dragon riding drakes. So the Cliffside Wilder Drake and the Winding Slither Drake are not currently represented in this list. So there might actually be some more mounts which do get added to the list. But the current mount types which correlate to dragon riding mounts are the Highland Drake type, the Renewed Proto Drake type, and the Windborn Velocidrake type. So I'm going to hate myself in editing to do this, but let's list the mounts. Okay, so first, type 424, which is the Highland Drake type. There is some random ones in there, I'm not really sure why, is the Swift Nether Drake, the Onyx Netherwing Drake, the Azure Netherwing Drake, the Cobalt Netherwing Drake, the Purple Netherwing Drake, the Viridian Netherwing Drake, the Violet Netherwing Drake, the Merciless Nether Drake, Vengeful Nether Drake, Brutal Nether Drake, Azure Drake, Blue Drake, Bronze Drake, Red Drake, Twilight Drake, Black Drake, Red Proto Drake, again, not sure why that's in there, Albino Drake, Deadly Gladiator's Frostworm, Furious Gladiator's Frostworm, Relentless Gladiator's Frostworm, Onyxian Drake, Wrathful Gladiator's Frostworm, Icebound Frostbrood Vanquisher, Bloodbathed Frostbrood Vanquisher, Volcanic Stone Drake, Drake of the East Wind, Phosphorant Stone Drake, Drake of the West Wind, Drake of the North Wind, Drake of the South Wind, Virtuous Stone Drake, Sandstone Drake, Motted Drake, Vicious Gladiator's Twilight Drake, Ruthless Gladiator's Twilight Drake, Blazing Drake, Twilight Harbinger, Lifebinder's Handmaiden, Experiment 12B, Cataclysmic, Gladiator's Twilight Drake, Enchanted Fey Dragon, Emerald Drake, Infinite Time Reaver, Vindictive Gladiator's Storm Dragon, Fearless Gladiator's Storm Dragon, Cruel Gladiator's Storm Dragon, Ferocious Gladiator's Storm Dragon, Fierce Gladiator's Storm Dragon, Dominant Gladiator's Storm Dragon, Deathlord's Vile Vanquisher, Smoldering Emberworm, Valinor Stormwing, Demonic Gladiator's Storm Dragon, Twilight Avenger, Island Thunderscale, Silverian Dreamer, Obsidian Worldbreaker, Uncorrupted Voidwing, Drake of the Four Winds, Steam Scale Incinerator, Sinful Gladiator's Soul Eater, Unchained Gladiator's Soul Eater, Tangled Dreamweaver, Cosmic Gladiator's Soul Eater, Eternal Gladiator's Soul Eater, Tyragosa's Visage, Scarlet Pterodax, and the Scourgeborn Vanquisher. And for the Renewed Proto-Drakes, we have Black Proto-Drake, Blue Proto-Drake, Time Lost Proto-Drake, Plagued Proto-Drake, Violet Proto-Drake, Green Proto-Drake, Ironbound Proto-Drake, Rusted Proto-Drake, Pureblood Firehawk, Fell Firehawk, Corrupted Firehawk, Spawn of Galakras, Battlelord's Bloodthirsty Warworm, Dread Gladiator's Proto-Drake, Sinister Gladiator's Proto-Drake, Notorious Gladiator's Proto-Drake, Corrupted Gladiator's Proto-Drake, and the Frostbrood Proto-Worm. And finally, the Windborn Velocidrake ones are the Armored Sky Screamer, the Dread Raven, the Corrupted Dread Raven, the Spectral Terrorwing, Cobalt Pterodax, Captured Swamp Stalker, Voldeneye Dune Scraper, Desirelore Wind Reaver, Colossal Slaughterclaw, Bonesoon Fleshrock, Hulking Deathrock, and the Predatory Deathrock. Honorable mention, the Heart of the Aspects mount is actually going to be using the Winding Slitherdrake animations as of patch 10.15, so that probably will be added in there too. But as mentioned, the Cliffside Wilder Drake and the Winding Slitherdrake do not have a kind of new mount type right now, so probably going to be a lot more mounts being added to that, like, you know, the Hunter class mount and things like that. And things that basically use the same sort of rigging and animations are going to be added to that list. So that's 100 new mounts, which are going to be used for dragon riding when Dynamic Flight comes in from the looks of things. So that is very, very, very exciting. Also worth noting, all of the mounts I just listed actually have all of the animations required for dragon riding. These were added in 10.15. So every single one of those 100 mounts can do the barrel roll and all that kind of jazz. So yeah, they are basically ready to go from an animation standpoint. It also looks like as well, we will potentially be able to use our Highland Drake and Renewed Proto-Drake and things like that in the regular world as well for regular flying from some very early data mining. So yeah, a lot of new mounts for dragon riding coming in 10.15. So yeah, that's basically it. That is kind of all the information we currently have on Dynamic Flight and dragon riding outside of the Dragon Isles. Hopefully I explained it okay, but yeah, we're definitely getting it. Blizzard have confirmed it. It's just a case of when, and it looks like it's going to be really cool in the way that we can just choose our type of flying depending on how we're feeling. So if you just kind of want to just chill out and fly across the Dragon Isles, you could probably do that whenever this comes in. So that's really cool. So yeah, guys, let me know down below what you think of Dynamic Flight and all of the mounts being added to dragon riding. Very, very very exciting times. Looking forward to covering that in more detail, obviously, once we get official confirmation of it. So thank you very much for watching, guys. If you like this video, please do leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to support me outside of YouTube, I also have a Patreon and I'm on Twitter at MrGMYT, and I have a Discord channel as well. All of those links are below. And as mentioned, I am streaming on twitch.tv/MrGM. If you want to see me stream World of Warcraft, Dragonflight, Dragonflight PTR, and more, over on twitch.tv/MrGM every single day. And with that, guys, I'll see you next time.